Welcome to the Physician Committee's Mission Critical Update with Dr. Neil Barnard. So thank you for joining us today. It's February 19th, 2021, and I'm Betsy Wasson, Vice President of Development here at PCRM, and we're so glad to have you joining us today. So much of the country is in a deep freeze this week, and our best wishes go out to those who are struggling, especially our friends in Texas. So Mission Critical, as you know, is our 30-minute weekly update to keep you informed about what your support is doing for animals, people, and the planet. And today we get to hear from Dr. Barnard, and he has some thoughts about Bill Gates' latest call to action for climate change. Our special guests today are Dr. Jessica Ponder, PCRM's regulatory testing analyst, and Maggie Neola, a dietitian on staff at PCRM and the Barnard Medical Center. So both our special guests are new to Mission Critical. We're so happy to have them with us today. All the work that you hear about on these Mission Critical updates is made possible by you. So as you know, sometimes we get results really quickly, and sometimes it takes years and years of hard work and dedication to secure that victory and make big changes happen. So with that in mind, let me put in a plug for our PCRM Lifetime Partner Program. So Lifetime Partners are members who have taken an extra step in planning ahead to make a future gift. And the most popular way to do this, by far, is to arrange for a bequest through a will or a trust. And members also arrange for future gifts through a designation of their retirement fund or by creating a charitable gift annuity with us. So there are lots of ways to support this work, and becoming a lifetime partner is one way to help ensure that we can continue to fight for change to make this a better world for all. And if you would like to learn more, or if you have already included PCRM in your future giving plans and would like to let us know, I'm going to give you the contact information for Kim Intino, and Kim manages our Lifetime Partner Program. So Kim can be reached at K-I-N-T-I-N-O, K-Intino at PCRM.org or 202-527-7318. We'll also put Kim's information in the chat. And thank you to all of you on today's call who are already lifetime partners. So many of you will be viewing this recording of Mission Critical in the future. And if you are able to join us live at 2 p.m. Eastern on Fridays, now you will get to join in a very busy chat box, which isn't visible in the recordings. So any way that you get to watch, we're glad that you are with us, and we're glad to be able to bring you these updates. So our chat box is buzzing. Let me remind you to choose all attendees and panelists from the dropdown and let us know where you're joining us from. So now let me turn this event over to the president and founder of Physicians Committee. Here's Dr. Neil Barnard with a Mission Critical update.
Thank you, Betsy. And by the way, thank you for mentioning our lifetime partners. As you were talking, Betsy, I was looking at the chat that's going by, and I noticed that there are a number of our lifetime partners who are there. And I also saw Deborah Shapiro come in, who's one of our great doctors in California, who says, don't forget our monthly supporters too. So I want to say a huge thank you to our monthly supporters, as well as our lifetime partners. And frankly, everybody who's on the call and been a supporter of ours. Thank you so much. Betsy mentioned something that's been in the news, all in the news. Those of you who are PCRM members have been calling for a long time for changing our diets, getting the animals off our plates. It's good for them. It's good for your coronary arteries too. But Bill Gates weighed in and said, you know, let's not forget it's good for the planet and really important. So let's talk a little bit about that. I'm going to share my screen, and I'd like to talk a little bit about what's been kind of hitting the news a lot, which is Bill Gates speaking out for the planet. Can you see this okay? Okay, great. There he is. There's Bill Gates, and one of our friends. And his new book is How to Avoid a Climate Disaster. And here's what he's talking about, is that if you thought that your burger came from some humanely killed cow somewhere in the fields of Wyoming, the fact of the matter is that there are millions and millions and millions of cows belching methane into the atmosphere, not just in the US, but in all around the world. And he's absolutely right. It's an environmental catastrophe. Food choices affect the climate in many ways. Livestock produce 37% of our methane. Methane is a hugely potent greenhouse gas. By the way, the cows burp it up because they're ruminant animals, and that's what they do. They also produce 9% of CO2 and 65% of nitrous oxide. All of these affect the climate. So great, good on him. And this has been a long time coming. Many, many people before him have made the same argument, but if you're Bill Gates, when you speak, people listen, so that's good. It's certainly good that he's doing it. However, let's go a little further. Yeah, let's get the cows off our plates, but how about them? And how about them? And if we cast a net into the sea and you see who comes up, how about them? All of these animals are extensively farmed, and they're all obviously cruelly treated, and you want to get them off your plate for compassionate reasons. They all have cholesterol and animal fat. You want to get them off for health reasons. But I'm going to argue that when we get animals off our plate, the environment breathes a lot easier too. Let me bring you to my childhood home. This is Fargo, North Dakota. This is when I get off the plane to visit my family or my old high school in Fargo. This is what I see. Corn, beautiful corn, all genetically engineered so they are identical and they are as far as the eye can see. Isn't that lovely? However, to raise all that corn, what are we doing this for? That's not sweet corn. No human being is going to eat one single bit of any of that. That's cattle feed and pig feed and chicken feed. And to raise the corn, you need fertilizer, pesticides, and you need a whole lot of water. And whatever doesn't fall out of the sky comes from irrigation. Really? Do you need that much water? Well, let me give you some numbers. Let's say you brush your teeth and you're going to take your time doing it. In fact, you're going to leave the water running the whole time. You could use up about a gallon of water. Take a shower, 20 gallons. Wash your car, 65 gallons. But to produce 1 pound of chicken, you need feed grains that are irrigated. And if you add up all that irrigation that goes into 1 pound of chicken, it's 420 gallons of water. To produce a pound of beef, 5,000 gallons. Okay, so that water in turn goes on the plants, some of it gets into the soil, and then it sort of trickles into the little rivers and streams. And as it does so, it carries pesticides along with it, and it carries fertilizer along with it, which end up in the rivers and the streams. And it, as the fertilizer for the feed crops, sends the nitrogen into and phosphorus into the rivers and streams. The fertilizer, it's not fertilizing corn now, it's fertilizing algae in the rivers and streams, in the Missouri River, the Mississippi River, and so forth, all the way down to Texas and Louisiana. And what it's doing is it's ending up killing off other life forms. And if you could look from outer space into the Gulf of Mexico, there's a dead zone that's as big as New Jersey. When I say dead, I mean dead. Things don't grow there because we have killed it off through animal agriculture's use of chemicals and all that irrigation that sends it down into what has become North America's toilet. If you're a meat eater, you're contributing to this. But if you're a meat eater, you can also become a vegan. And when you get the animals off your plates, they breathe a sigh of relief, and so do your coronary arteries, and so does the whole Gulf of Mexico and the rest of the planet too. So what's my point? My point is Bill Gates is right. But we can go much further. In his book, if you read his, and you should read his book, I encourage you to. He's absolutely right, I think, in everything he says. But he says this is hard to do. Let me tell you something, this is easy. It's so easy to get the animals off your plate, and it is way easier than shopping for a new planet. Okay, so a healthy diet, fruits, grains, legumes, vegetables. That's what we ought to be eating. Okay, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about something else that's been in the news now. And this has been really quite a surprise. The other pandemic, aside from destroying our planet, is COVID-19. And COVID-19, as you may remember if you've been watching this program, is strongly linked to diabetes. And where the story left off was that if you had diabetes, you were set up for a bad course if you had COVID. We learned this as soon as the pandemic emerged in China. People who did not have diabetes, 2.7% likelihood of dying of COVID. If you had diabetes, 7.8%. Bad to have diabetes if the virus comes into your house. But then it was not just, do you have diabetes? It's a question of, are you out of control with your diabetes, meaning your blood sugar's up? 11% mortality. Or if you have diabetes, is it in good control? 1% mortality. And it's not that hard to go from poor control to good control with plant-based diet. You know the work that we've been talking about for decades now, as well as medications if you need them. Okay, but here's the news. Here's what just hit the news. And that's when people have COVID, they end up being hospitalized. All of a sudden, you find that people who did not have diabetes as they were starting to be sick now have diabetes apparently caused by COVID. What's going on? Well, what was just published, this is a meta-analysis. And meta-analysis means I'm going to take many studies that have been done in the past, combine the findings together, and see what I come up with. 4 studies from China, 2 from Italy, 2 from the United States. What did we find? The average patient was between 47 and 65, and 14% of people hospitalized with COVID who didn't have diabetes before end up with diabetes in the hospital. How can that be? We don't know for sure, but we think it's 2 things. Number 1, the virus is attacking the beta cells that produce insulin. You're losing your ability to make insulin. That's like type 1 diabetes. But they also attack the liver cells. That causes insulin resistance. That's like type 2 diabetes. Once you get over the disease, will the diabetes go away? We don't know. All this makes a case for doing all the things you know to do. Wear your mask, social distancing, get vaccinated, do all the things you can to protect yourself against the disease. Let's go further. Let's follow a really healthy diet because, as our team has shown, that boosts the health of the beta cells and it reduces insulin resistance. So there you have it. Thanks again to everybody, and back to you, Betsy.
Thank you, Dr. Barnard. You always pack so much information into that small amount of time for us. And it's just, I can see in the chat, we're all soaking it up. And thank you for bringing us that news. Well, hundreds of people are on the call with us today, and it's a very international group. Sometimes it is, but we're all making up one big PCRM family. So it's great to see Anil in New Jersey and Dick in Florida. We would love to take some of your 88-degree weather and share it around the PCRM family a little bit for those of us who are in a little bit colder areas. And we've got Germany and South Africa, Norway, Ireland, Argentina. So all of these places represented, and it's so great to have you all with us today. So let me go ahead and introduce our next presenter. Dr. Jessica Ponder works with PCRM's team to end the use of animals in research and training. She's been working on ending the use of animals in drug testing for years and years. And today she's going to explain an exciting program that she's working on. It's helping to move science away from harming animals. So Dr. Ponder, let me throw it over to you.
Hi, everybody. I'm excited to be here. Happy Friday. Let me pull out my slides. Well, you have them on the screen there. So this is a project that the project I'm going to talk about today is about workplace safety. And just like everything else PCRM does, you know, we would really like to see workplace safety regulations be based on human relevant test methods. And so that's what this project is really about. And so it turns out that in terms of chemical exposure at the workplace, for people like the gentleman you see here who are spraying paints or adhesives or epoxies or enamels on car fenders and things like that, they can actually develop a condition called allergic asthma. And so we learned this because after the workers were using these paints and hardeners, they would get sick and they have to go to the doctor's office and get treated. And we started then requiring the personal protective measures you see here that he's wearing to keep himself safe, to protect workers from these chemicals. and they became known as respiratory sensitizers. And so the trouble here is actually that we still don't actually have a test method that we can use to predict when a new chemical, if the company comes out with a new paint or a new material, we can't predict when those new chemicals are going to require protective measures like we've found with the older chemicals. And so this is really a problem because it leaves workers at risk. And so you may have heard Christy Sullivan talk before about adverse outcome pathways, but this is a perfect example of when we use an adverse outcome pathway. Because what an adverse outcome pathway really does is it tells the scientific story of how you go from being exposed to a chemical at work to developing a condition, in this case, allergic asthma or chemical allergy. And so putting together an AOP is not a small amount of work, it's actually a large amount of work. And it's very complicated, but it becomes very powerful very quickly. Because what we can do is we can leverage this information to develop the right testing methods. So first we found in the work that Christy and I have done to develop this adverse outcome pathway for respiratory sensitizers is that there's actually a lot of overlap in the pathway for developing respiratory sensitization as there is for skin compounds exposed to the skin getting a skin allergy. And so there's a lot of overlap between those two pathways. But we can also use this information to make a list of all the chemicals that have ever been proven to cause chemical allergy and respiratory sensitization in humans. And that's really important because we can then leverage that information to develop the best non-animal methods to identify respiratory sensitizers. And so it turns out, based on the overlap between the two pathways for skin sensitization and respiratory sensitization, that we can actually rely on the non-animal test methods that were developed for skin sensitizers, whether those methods are computational methods or you have human cells that you're growing in vitro. Those methods are actually showing a lot of promise in predicting whether or not a chemical can be a respiratory sensitizer. And this is very, very important because it doesn't just tell us about human health risks, but it informs us in the way that we can use that for regulations. And so in the United States, all across the world, we use these tests to determine when a person should wear PPE, what kind of PPE they should be wearing to keep them safe in the workplace, but also shipping and handling regulations to determine how to safely transport materials, and labeling requirements so that everybody that handles the material knows how to protect themselves in the process. And so what's exciting is that we actually see a lot of really good prediction from these skin sensitizer methods that were developed for skin allergy compounds in terms of predicting respiratory allergy. And this is a unique opportunity because there is not currently an animal test in place yet. And so we are essentially now in a race to develop an accurate testing method for respiratory sensitizers based on the human data that we have and using human relevant methods, because the EPA is now proposing a strategy based on the animal testing methods for skin sensitizers, which unfortunately uses mice and guinea pigs historically. And so this is work that we are going to be presenting next month at a national toxicology conference so that we can be the first to cross this finish line and establish that an accurate testing method based on human relevant methods with the EPA.
Dr. Ponder, thank you so much for the work you do and for taking a very complicated subject and breaking it down for us so that we can understand about the work that you and the team are doing. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
So we will have this recording available. We'll send it out later this afternoon so that you can share it or rewatch some of these presentations. So now let me go ahead and introduce Maggie Miola. She's a dietitian at PCRM and also sees patients at Barnard Medical Center. So Maggie works on so many programs to bring nutrition education to people all over the world. And she's here today to give us an update on our Fight COVID-19 with Food series, a program that many of you supported and helped us launch last year at the beginning of the pandemic. So Maggie, welcome to Mission Critical.
Thank you very much. All right, can you see my screen now? Is that good? Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. And as you know, we have talked about the Fight COVID-19 with Food nutrition class before. So I just want to give you a quick update on this series. It's a free 8-week series that we started back in June 2020 as a way to help people with underlying conditions to COVID, meaning diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, and really show them how to adopt a low-fat, plant-based diet to improve their health. And every week in class, we gather and we have an expert nutrition presentation, a different lecture with different topics. We bring in 3 different special guests that are partners of ours to inspire our attendees and provide them with a lot of practical information as they transition to eating plant-based. We give them lots of recipes and resources, and we even have time for them to ask dietitians questions in the Q&A box. And these are some of the guests that we have with us, just a few of them. You can see in the top 3 photos, we have Dr. Vanita Rahman, Deetra Dennis, and Mark Ramirez, both of which are Food for Life instructors. And there are 3 instructors for this series, this round. And the rest of the photos are all the different guests that come in and provide lots of inspiration. You can see Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams. The 2 kids that are here are Anu Barman and Max Rodriguez, and they star in a really fun cooking show called So Many Kids in the Kitchen. We see Dr. Yami here from Washington State of Veggie Fit Kids, and many other fantastic partners we are so grateful for to be working with. And every week we have a different topic, as I mentioned. So this past week we talked about getting healthy as a household, and we had 2 different rock star couples come and share how they do that and what they're doing in their community during the pandemic. One other really fun thing that we're doing every week to engage our attendees while they're from home and virtually joining us over Zoom, just like you today, is we do Bean Camp. And Bean Camp is a fun way to assess someone's progress. Every week we use this little handout here where they can track how they're doing and count how many beans they get throughout the 8-week series. And we ask them these 4 questions. The first one is a trick question. Obviously they're with us. And then we ask them how many meals were vegan, how many of them were low fat this past week, and then if they've had health improvements. And what we see throughout this series is every week these numbers are going up. And so people are making progress and seeing improvements in their health, which is amazing. Another fun activity we like to do is really help people think about, how am I going to make plant-based meals at home? So this past week, Mark Ramirez talked about tacos. So we threw up on the screen, hey, if you have taco shells, what are we going to put on them? And then we had people select in a poll, oh, I want to go with pinto beans and salsa and tomato. And maybe I'll also throw some radishes on there. And so they'll tell us in the chat box, what would they put on their tacos? And it's so fun to see that. And then we shared a little recipe that Mark Ramirez uses at his family's house. So he loves black bean tacos. You can see with different spices like cumin, and he puts jalapenos on there. And so we're going to be able to share this recipe with you as well. So just really giving our attendees a lot of practical information and trying to keep it budget friendly as well during this pandemic. So just a few closing stats for you. With round 3, we have almost 8,000 registrants with us. Not everyone can attend live, but we do record the class series, and quite a few people are downloading those slides and recordings to be able to watch when they're available. And 70% of our registrants and even our attendees are completely new to PCRM. So we're reaching new people and new to this message of eating plant-based, which is really exciting. You can see that 75% of them before this class series were not vegan, had never tried a vegan diet. And so we're really reaching the people that we want to with this program and making a difference. And that is thanks to you for funding this and making this happen. We couldn't do that without you. So if you'd like to check out more about this series, you can go to pcrm.org/nutrition class. And there are 3 classes left in the series. So please help us spread the word and get these resources out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maggie. And, I think it's worth emphasizing one of your last points about the attendees. These are people who were not following a vegan diet before they started attending classes. So even though everyone needs this information, this isn't just preaching to the choir. We're reaching so many people, and then they're reaching more people with their families and their friends. So it's just terrific to see. Dr. Barnard, let me go ahead and pass it back to you for some closing comments.
Yes, thank you. By the way, as you were talking, Maggie, I noticed one of the questions was, are we going to be repeating this throughout the year for new people? Maggie, am I right that we are going to be repeating it not just once, but we're going to just keep going?
Well, I think so. We're still trying to figure out what this would look like in the future, but we want to be getting this information out to everyone, and we will have some news.
All right. Well, as your boss, the answer is yes. We are we are going to be repeating this over and over again. I have to say, my heart just leapt out of my chest when we did you remember the very first session that we did last year. COVID was coming in a huge way. It was hammering people of color, especially. And the reason is not the color of your skin. The reason is the disparities in diabetes, the reason disparities in hypertension, disparities in obesity, in addition to all the economic and structural disparities that are there and need to be addressed too. But we thought, all right, what a great thing to be able to get the word out to people. And when we first launched the beginning of this, last year, to see thousands of people coming up, people for whom vegan diets were totally new. And in the course of the series, embracing it, changing their lives. And week after week, we'd hear about how great they were doing. And the best thing of all is, if I give you a metformin prescription, it might help you. It's not going to help anybody else. But if I teach you about vegan eating, you spread that to everybody. You can't resist talking about it and sharing it. So it affects maybe your reluctant kids, your spouse, everybody gets this message. So it's fantastic. So anyway, we are just about out of time. So I want to say, first of all, a huge thank you to Dr. Ponder. Wonderful presentation. And as you pointed out, these adverse outcome pathways are helping us reduce animal testing and attack it directly because we're using the very best science. Because we're doing that, we're advancing science and we're saving animals' lives. And this is, as you said, a big job. It's a big job to do it. It's a big job to get regulatory acceptance for it. But that's the battle that we are winning very clearly right now with the support of all the people who are participating in today's program. So I want to say a huge thank you to all of you. And as Maggie Miola was saying, that we have been able to make a huge difference, not only in the lives of individuals, but in the lives of whole communities all around the United States and much of the rest of the world. And we are not only going to continue, but we're going to build this. COVID-19, yes, it's a disaster. It's a catastrophe. It's not the only one. We got diabetes, we've got heart disease, we've got cancer. These are catastrophes too. We've got climate change. That's a catastrophe that threatens the survival of the planet. The solution to all of them is, at least in large part, making day-to-day decisions that are good for us, good for the planet, and good for the animals that we share it with. Our work is changing how science is done. It's changing health, for sure. It's changing communities, but it's also changing something else that's equally important, and that's our values. So many people have a heart for animals feel, well, I don't really want to say that because it makes me sound not very strong. Well, now hear this. It's not just Bill Gates and others who are speaking up saying, get the animals off our plate. It is now becoming the new norm. And when compassion becomes a norm, there's no stopping us. The world is in a far better place than it's ever been. So I want to say a big thank you to all of you for your support, whether you're a lifetime partner, whether you're a monthly donor, or whether you're brand new to us and you just joined in today. Thank you very much for being part of the team. Back to you, Betsy.
Thank you. And let's go ahead and make compassion the norm. I just love that. Thank you, Maggie and Dr. Ponder, for joining us, and for all of you who are tuning in today for Mission Critical. Let me say that we're going to try something new. So when you sign up for the next Mission Critical, you'll be signing up for the whole series throughout 2021. And so you won't have to keep registering every week. We hope this will be easier for you. It'll just jump onto your calendar and you'll get a reminder every week instead of having to register for a new session every week. So let's see, we can only cover so much during these Friday briefings, and we try to pack as much in as we can, but we just love sharing this work with you because, you know, as Dr. Barnard said, you are the ones that are making it happen. So if you ever have any questions about the work or you'd like to know more, please contact us. You know, we love to share. And that's about it. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll see you next Friday for Mission Critical.